So we're now recording. The participants are coming in. Good. Hello, everyone, as you're joining us. Appreciate everyone coming in. We're going to give it a couple minutes to kind of let everybody log in so we don't skip anyone. Good. Folks are still coming in. So as you're joining, at the bottom of your screen, please open your Q&A. And I'm going to go open mine and make sure that all your questions, so everybody should be able to see the questions. In the Q&A, if you open that icon and type in your name and where you're from, that would be perfect. Thank you, Sally. Good to see you, Janie. People are starting to come in. That would be great to make sure that you're getting everyone. If you can't see the Q&A or the bar, the toolbar, make sure you've downloaded Zoom because that's what's going to allow you to participate in today's webinar. Good. Thank you all. Thank you, Heather. Beverly, nice to see folks coming in. Appreciate it very much. Great. Okay, looks like things are working. If you have any issues, just type your question or the issue in the Q&A, and I'll see what I can do. I'll be monitoring the Q&A the whole time. I'm not going to be using chat. So if you communicate in chat, may not see it. So be sure and use Q&A. Welcome to episode number 15 of the Net Effect, and our special guest, Susan Wright. We're so glad to have you. That's who that lovely lady is next to me in my picture. So glad to have you. Yes, and I'm Robin Jones, your host for the day. I'm director of the Career Alliance. Appreciate everyone taking time out of their busy schedules for this incredible topic. And just like I said, make sure that everything's working, your Q&A, and type in your name and where you're from. We'd love to hear from you. Hi, Sarah Romo. Nice to see you from St. Louis. Be sure and say hi to your mom and dad for me. I'd appreciate that. This is kind of an exciting time. We're going to jump in right away here. On Wednesday, the House passed and approved maybe the most ambitious conservation package in a generation, and they're sending it to the White House. It's a bipartisan legislation, over 300 members in the House supporting it. It's called the Great American Outdoors Act. And it's going to be providing an annual budget of $900 million to the Land and Water Conservation Fund and offering billions toward fixing the nation's crumbling parks and public lands. So what a topical time to have our guest Susan on today. Susan's got an incredible story, and we're going to start it a little bit differently this time than we've done before, because Susan made a transition during that and before the 2008 recession that I think is remarkable. And she chose a field of study that was completely different. Well, there were some similarities, I guess, right, with conservation, but she had to get some training and she had to get some extra schooling, and there was a whole lot of things that kind of led into this job change, but it's just remarkable. And what a great story it is. And so we're gonna start where Susan, was an editor and had been working in the publication field for 17 years with Sunset Magazine, which I absolutely love, and working in a place where quite comfortable, and yet here was an opportunity that presented itself. And so you talk about your interest in communication, Susan, after you graduated from print college. Talk a little bit about that.
Yeah, I graduated from Principia in 1990, and I came out to California, and I really was interested in communication. I got this job right out of college working for Sunset Magazine in the production department. I helped put the magazines together, and then about 7 years in, got into the custom publishing division, which was this new area, and making magazines for other companies. It was all about using tools of publishing to help develop loyalty with companies and get people to move forward buying products. So
Right.
it was a really interesting field. I really enjoyed it. And yeah, I had, customers, like I was the editor of a food magazine for Safeway grocery stores. And we
Right.
did a
I've read
travel
that.
magazine.
There's some great recipes in that, by the way.
Really?
You probably had some hand in that.
I know, it's kind of funny, but we did a travel magazine for Acura. So it was, pulling all these things together, super creative, and I was enjoying it a lot.
Well, and then you saw this article, right?
Yes, exactly. It was 2006. I kept this article because this was this major transition for me, where I read this article. It's not that I hadn't heard about global warming before, but there was something about reading this that just stopped me short. And I thought, oh, I felt like I wanted to do something with my career to be a part of a solution. And so it was really after that I started taking steps to see what I could do to switch into this field of environmental sustainability. So I started attending classes and conferences, and I signed up for a lot of email newsletters, trying to keep up with trends and news. And about 18 months into that, that's when the 2008 recession hit, and I got laid off from my job at Sunset. All that custom publishing was just going away. So that caught me off guard, but it was actually a blessing because it allowed me to concentrate on my career transition and also spend time with my newborn son. So, yeah.
So you're a mom,
anyway,
a new mom, and you're looking at a new career, and your employer says, thanks for all the good work that you've done. See, our time has ended, right? And fortunately,
yes.
you kind of started down this pathway.
Right, exactly. But it was interesting because, I started applying for other jobs, but I didn't have any experience really in sustainability. And so I wasn't getting anywhere. And so I started doing some things to try and understand the industry better, to build a network. So I was just indicating some of these things I was learning. I participated in an environmental leadership program that a nonprofit hosted, and it was a 10-month program, and that was hugely helpful and also got me meeting other people. I did some volunteering. I joined my city, had a new citizens advisory committee, a green advisory committee. And so a team of us all worked together to put together some recommendations about sustainability for the city council. And so that picture is, I was chosen to present our ideas to the city council at a public meeting. And then I also was eventually able to start doing some consulting. And so I did helped the city put on an Earth Day celebration, for instance. So
how did that kind of come about? I mean, the consulting piece, was that just kind of a natural thing?
It really was about the relationships, because after I was on the Citizens Advisory Committee, then I met the Parks and Rec director, who got me to apply for the Parks and Rec Commission. And so it was through the Parks Department that they were hosting this Earth Day, and I had heard about it. So I was helping out with that. And then they hired me and a partner to put on a bunch of events as part of this Earth Day. So it really was things that just evolved from being more in touch with people.
Did you find that that it was it scary? Was it difficult? I mean, was your age an issue? I mean, how did you make that transition? It seems like there was a lot of steps in place, but did you find some of those challenges?
Yes. It wasn't initially scary. It was, day one, yes. I'm saying, I was being laid off. Then it worked out because I had such a nice severance cushion, so that I felt like I was able to do this exploration. So that was good. Then the severance ran out. And so then that was scarier, and it was figuring it out and trying to figure out how I could, do things part-time, and, a lot of prayer when it's all of that, which I can mention in a few minutes. But yeah, I kept moving forward, and it was sort of in a day-by-day way to just keep learning, basically, see where I was going to fit in.
Right. And how important was it? I mean, you mentioned that you met, a person at an event, and how important is it then to talk to folks and have conversations, into different types of fields and with different people?
Yeah, it's huge, because I knew I was interested in sustainability, but that means so many things, and it applies to so many, there's so many parts of it. Like, is that, energy efficiency or transportation or water conservation or recycling and waste and sustainable food, all of that. And so I was really needing to figure out what was most interesting to me and where I fit in. So that it was really helpful to talk to different people, and I would go to talks and just hear what different people were talking about. And I started to figure out the area that I was most interested in. I started to see I was interested in energy efficiency and water conservation the most, because I felt like if you could make a change, that then that really would help move things forward. As opposed to like waste is a lot about changing people's behavior, which I found, tricky.
Right.
too. So,
oh yeah.
Yeah.
Imagine that.
But I would go to these, workshops or whatever, or networking events. And I remember very vividly forcing myself to stay until I had made at least one good connection or had a good conversation, because it wasn't something I just looked to do. And I think that's the case of a lot of people.
Well, I think so too. Yeah. And you've kind of identified what, the different sectors in the conservation area. Tell us a little bit about that.
Well, yeah, when I was at Sunset, I knew all about companies, it was a public company, but, so I knew that whole sensibility. But then when I got volunteering with the city, that I was learning about public agencies. And even when I said I would join the Parks and Rec Commission, I didn't know what a commission was when I started. I had to learn all about this. And then nonprofits was a natural, because there were so many environmental nonprofits in our area. And that was a great way for me to really be able to volunteer. And I was really open. I was essentially being exposed to all three sectors, and I would have been open to a job in any of them. But I was just seeing where I was going to fit in. I mean, it could have been, I was investigating things like jobs as a sustainability manager at a company. That would have been something that could have worked. And then nonprofits, of course, do such meaningful work. They don't always have the funding they need. So,
right.
But the staffs tend to be small, so you get to wear a lot of hats and get great experience. And then the public agencies, can take a long time to get something to happen, but when it does, then it has scale. So any of these would have been interesting to me for different reasons.
Well, I'm just going to put a little plug in here for our Get the Tools section as it relates to informational interviews. And later on, I'm going to pull up your career connection for the Career Alliance. I'll show where everyone is, but I just want to make sure that, a lot of people really struggle with this whole networking thing. You mentioned it earlier about, I'm going to stay until I get one person, right? Have one good conversation. Well, in our Get the Tools section, there's a PDF with questions that you can download for informational interviews. So if you're struggling or you need a script, and I certainly recommend it, pull down that PDF and download it, and then look at those questions. And as you start to learn about the career path you want to go on, add questions to it, tailor it, build it towards what your interest, where you're being led. So, and then we have a wonderful course in Life Launch, that is our online career courses in interviewing. So it's a video component. It's about 20 minutes, and there's some great tips in there that Don Asher tells us. So But as we move on into finding that true employment, you have some really good inspirational ideas that I'd love for you to share with our listeners.
Well, yeah. So essentially, you were asking too, was I scared? You know, I was loving what I was learning about this new field, and I felt like I was making a contribution through my volunteering. As I was going, I was really praying to understand that my true employment was to express God and to simply just be loving. I prayed to be guided in my path and just take the steps I needed to every day, and to really listen and to be alert to know what I needed to do. So I was enjoying it, but 2 years in, I had been working and learning and searching for 2 years after having been laid off, and I still hadn't made any significant income for my efforts. So I did a lot of soul searching and earnestly prayed to be humble. I made a simple, sincere request to God. Please put me where you want me to be, wherever that is. Because I just didn't know, did I need to U-turn? Did I need to go back to publishing? I didn't really know. And at the same time, that just caused me to feel really inspired to connect with church to a depth that I hadn't experienced for many years. And that felt really good. A couple of years later, or a couple of months later, all of the seeds I had planted suddenly started to take root. So I was offered 2 part-time jobs within a week of each other.
Wow.
And so while neither one was in this career field, it was okay. At least it felt like it was a wonderful opportunity to help others. One was back at my old work that they needed some help with the project. Anyway, and then 2 months after that, I started some paid consulting for an environmental nonprofit to help them launch a new community forum. That was great because it was leveraging my communication skills and then giving me more experience to highlight on my resume. So between all 3 jobs at that point, I was finally working a total of 40 hours a week.
Nice.
I was enjoying that work, but then the juggling of it all, it was like officially 40 hours, but anyone who's done that knows it's like so hectic and you feel like you don't have any free time. So, I was still praying, okay, this is great now,
right.
what do I do?
Right.
And so gratefully, a few months later, an acquaintance forwarded me a posting for a sustainability job with my county government. And I never would have seen that job posting at all if she hadn't sent it to me. So that whole thing of like building your network is so important, of letting people know what you're looking for and you're interested in, because that's so much how I think some of these things happen.
I appreciate what you're saying. I can't tell you how many times I tell people, just keep working, keep telling your story, reach out to folks that don't make that assumption that they don't know, or they're not this, or they're not, just like you say, where do you want me, God?
Yeah, right. Exactly. So, and I think with informational interviewing, the more specific you can be as you're figuring it out of what you're interested in, it helps people remember better. Oh, I remember that person was thinking about this, so they might a few months later even tell you something because they remember that you had that specific interest. So.
Right.
So anyway, there are a few hiccups. I just want to say, a few hiccups in the job interview process. My phone actually went off twice in an interview.
Right.
Terrible. But essentially, I got the job, and I just felt such a sense of peace, and just felt like it was the right place for me. And it was like, in some ways, I felt like I was a spectator, just watching God work. So I was grateful.
And then you kind of you did land the job, and then you kind of started working for the county, right? And decided.
Yeah, I was working for the county for about 4 years, and I should back up and say too that I had thought about, when I started this whole journey, should I go back to school? I was so eager to get in and start doing the work. I didn't want to spend time in class then, right? So I told myself, if I ever felt like I got to the point where having a master's would help, then I would be open to doing that. And so after having been at the county for about 4 years, I started to feel like, I think getting a master's would help me increase my impact. And so I decided I wanted to get a master's of public administration. And I was able to attend classes part-time while then working full-time. So it took me 4 years to do that. I received financial support from the Albert Baker Fund for my tuition.
Good.
Thank you.
Good.
I'm very grateful
Yeah.
for that.
Good.
And I chose Presidio Graduate School because sustainability is embedded into every course. And so in my mind, the program was focusing on environmental sustainability. That was my lens. But on the first day of class, I was introduced to this 3-part definition of sustainability, which you see the circles here. So it's essentially saying to be sustainable, we need to address the needs of the environment, but also the needs of the economy and people, or social equity. So this concept is foundational for Presidio, and it's really transformed the way I look at problem solving. So another big game changer for me was learning about Project Drawdown. If you're not familiar with that, it's a nonprofit that did extensive research to come up with a list of the top 100 solutions to actually reverse global warming worldwide. So if we scale up these things by 2030, we can actually reverse global warming. I found that very inspiring.
Yeah, particularly with all the things that you read and hear, right?
Yeah, exactly. So I was so inspired by it that it became the springboard for my graduate school capstone project. And if you're interested, I put a link to that on my LinkedIn profile. It's like a 7-minute talk that I gave.
Super. Well, you kind of mentioned that you woke up to the social equity when you went to Presidio. So tell us a little bit about these projects.
Yeah, well, it was kind of crazy because yes, I started thinking about social equity. And so I was in still my first semester at Presidio, and I saw this job opening for a role at a nonprofit, Ecology Action, and it was a water conservation role. It was launching this new water conservation program, and then we were in the drought, but it was all about going and directly installing water conservation equipment, like in homes, shower heads and faucet aerators, in what's called, air quotes, disadvantaged communities. No one likes to be called a disadvantaged community, so it's basically areas that are disproportionately impacted by poverty and pollution. And so our outreach teams knocked on doors, in over 20,000 homes, and then restaurants installed those low flow dish sprayers, like 5,000 restaurants, and it was over 4 counties. So it felt really good to help, businesses and people directly save water during that severe drought. Then the thing is, after 3.5 years, the grant ran out. It was from the state of California. So the funding was gone, the drought was over. It was like, goodbye. It was time to find a new job. Gratefully, it was this really lovely coincidence, or hopefully more God at work. But
God's timing, right?
Yes. Right when I was looking for my next role, I was talking to my old boss and learned that the county of San Mateo had this new job open in what was now named the Office of Sustainability. And I went through the process and was rehired. So I was thrilled. Right.
And then you started looking at things from the big picture and started thinking about things. Tell us a little bit about some of these really important issues that you guys address in your work.
Yeah, well, these goals that are on the slide are goals from the state of California. And so the big one is in yellow there, carbon neutrality for 25. Exactly how that's defined is everyone's still working on. But it's essentially moving away from fossil fuels. And a major thing that I do in my role right now is I host a monthly working group we have 20 cities in our county. And so we have support for them, the sustainability coordinators of these 20 cities, to help those cities develop a climate action plan and then implement it. So, and the plan is a commitment to reduce greenhouse gas emissions by a certain amount by a certain time, and saying, here's what we're going to do to get there. So I'm supporting cities in doing that. And I really enjoy helping them work together so that everyone doesn't have to do it on their own.
Right. So how do you You've talked a little. We've talked about prayer. We've talked about it in transition to the job, and but how do you pray about it from this big, the big picture, the daunting things that we see? People are going to be displaced, and the shores are rising. The wall, all those things. Everything's melting. How do you think about that?
Yeah, it's interesting because people talk about, oh, we need to save the planet. Actually, the planet is fine. It will be here. It will adapt and change. It's us and our current quality of life that we are trying to save, honestly. And so we need to act now. And so some of the ways that I pray about this are just seeing that there isn't anything that's too hard for God, right? This isn't like some insurmountable thing. Like, God is and always has been in control and loves us. It's amazing. You think about some of these crazy things that you read about in the Bible and you think, how different is that now than what we're talking about now, and realizing that God protected folks all the way through these really difficult challenges. And I love that idea too from Mary Baker Eddy about divine love always has met and always will meet every human need. What our needs are being met and will be met. And then this thing about resources too, the idea of soul or God having the infinite resources to bless mankind. We're not being cursed. God is blessing us, and we can see that. And then I like the quote about trust in the Lord with all thine heart and lean not unto thine own understanding. In all thy ways acknowledge him, and he shall direct thy paths. So sometimes when things will feel complex or don't really know, but just remembering this is not mine to do. This is just really listening to see what the next thing is to do.
I love it. I think those are so important. Let's look at some things as it relates to today and the impact that we've all seen with respect to COVID-19 to sustainability and starting to meet some of those goals that you've shared with us and talked about.
Yeah. Well, I mean, there's the silver lining of all this to environmentalists is like, whoo, the air quality is great. People are riding their bikes, teleworking, so many people enjoy it. So there's these positives, but at the same time, you don't want to have people associate good things with economic devastation. You never would want to wish that on anyone. So that is a tricky thing. The other thing, that we're noticing, environmentalists want to keep moving because climate change didn't forget about what the needs are, just because we're all distracted with COVID. But in terms of our communities, everyone's still in emergency mode. We're not even quite to recovery. And so with recovery, it totally makes sense. When I showed the three circles, economy, environment, equity, those things go together, right? And so some of the things that we need for solutions come from things that you think of as environmental. Like, for instance, if someone's business, you can help them save energy, they're reducing their energy bill. That helps their fixed costs. But are you really wanting to think about an energy retrofit when you're just trying to make payroll,
right.
And see if you're going to be open next week? So it's really tricky figuring out how we can incorporate these, the thought about environment within this sense of recovery.
Well, tell us about some of the typical projects you're working on.
Well, it's interesting. They kind of run the gamut from things that are really straightforward to things that are really complex. So, like with water conservation, this is a photo from the water conservation program I mentioned at the nonprofit, but, helping people with replacing a shower head or knowing to do that. That's one type of project, communicating with the public about that. Another, like the energy efficiency, we have programs in our department that help businesses or city governments or schools to connect them with resources to get them, these energy retrofits. And another thing that's new for me in my current role is we handle stormwater management and all the regulations that go with that for the county. So this is an example of a rain garden where you're trying to use landscaping as a way to have water filter through it and clean the water instead of having all that go directly out into the bay for us with all these pollutants that would go out. So those are the kind of projects, those are a little bit more complex too, of getting these things built in both public facilities and also in private as well.
That's cool though. I mean, that's really interesting. I've seen some of those.
Well, and it's fun because those are having a pollution benefit or fixing pollution, but it's also when you're adding more trees and green spaces, it's great for the people.
Right,
well.
Absolutely. Multiple benefits. So tell us about this. So it's kind of interesting, decarbonizing homes. Like, that sounds like an exciting topic.
It sounds kind of wonky, doesn't it?
Yeah.
Decarbonize, it's back to when I was talking about the carbon neutrality goal. And so decarbonizing a home would be getting it so it's not using fossil fuels, right? And so,
okay.
So one area that we're finding needs help is thinking about how to do that for existing single family homes. And because every home is different and maybe has had you might remodel certain ones and update it different ways, but it's a really tricky business. So I've been working to collaborate through my role, but with the other 8 counties in the San Francisco Bay Area through this program called the Bay Area Regional Energy Network. And so we're thinking about really, if we're going to meet these bigger goals, we need to accelerate getting going on these decarbonizing much more than just in the past. We've just had rebates, and as people decide they want to do something, they'll access a rebate, but we need to really push it forward. So we're working, and I just want to say other things about this decarbonizing are, it's saying making a home more energy efficient. It's replacing furnace, like your furnace or other elements that are using natural gas, and replacing them with a heat pump or an electric version of it. It's looking at having solar and then a battery, and then electric vehicles. And electric vehicles can even plug into homes and act as a battery if your power is out, which we have power outage because of fire danger sometimes here, which is happening a lot more. So anyway, we've been mapping out pieces of the puzzle of all of this. And so I was just putting these these different drawings around to represent some of the areas that we're thinking about. Like contractors are huge. You need to have home contractors that actually know how to install these electric appliances, and I'm interested in doing it because a lot of like, oh, we're fine with what we're doing right now, thanks. So we don't need to learn a new thing that's, maybe more complicated or risky or something like that. So we're trying to figure out how to get the contractors trained and make it worth their while. Basically, it's thinking about how can we, use rebates in the right way, but also try and develop some financial products like zero interest loans from the utility that you can get money up front to do a retrofit, but then you're saving energy, so you just pay it back on your bill. That service is already offered for businesses in California, but not to households. So that's something, an idea. Data, using data to figure out which types of homes might be most cost effective to do this and make the most sense to, market to or organize our programs to first. And so thinking about how to move the market through looking at early adopters and kind of pushing things along. And then there's the question of aging infrastructure and our grid. And we want to move all this stuff, more electricity on it, with our electric vehicles and our electric homes. Can the grid handle it? Where can it handle it? That's a statewide question, but it's something that we realize the need to coordinate with, because if we're all pushing on our programs and if they're not quite ready with the grid, then what do you do? So there's a lot to it, but I really enjoy thinking about the big picture and how we can start working together more collaboratively among a lot of different organizations to be moving in the same direction.
Well, I think what I would like to do is kind of ask a question from one of our participants. Since we've talked a lot about the different projects and the work and all the different things, it's just amazing stuff. But this question is, how would you describe success in your current role today in this environment? What does that look like? What does success look like in your world?
Wow. That's such a good question. And it's interesting because, I was saying a few minutes ago that in a public agency, things can take a long time to really get everything lined up, but then eventually you'll have big scale. And that's kind of what we're trying to do. But there's also programs that we do that have very specific KPIs or key performance indicators. And so I guess it's really meeting the goals for the program at hand, but I don't know, I guess it's figuring out, for me, I guess it's figuring out how the system works so you can really work more in collaboration with others to get stuff done. So how do you measure that? I don't know.
So are there like qualities that are really helpful? Are there things that like you mentioned collaboration a lot? We haven't said the word pivot yet, but but we've been talking about, you've talked a lot about collaboration. So I have to think your communication skills that you brought with you from Sunset, and the ability to put together a proposal or a project, right?
Yes, that's actually really true. I think, collaboration, creativity, the ability to help other people see where you can go. Because I think there's a tendency sometimes to have people feel like, well, this is my lane. This is the part that I can influence. And for all of us, it's like we're having to see that we need to reach out to others who we never thought of as partners before, and figure out how to work together. So I think that, that collaboration, and the thing that for me, I try and stay really open to is remembering somebody 3 months ago said this one thing that all of a sudden now I'm realizing that's a puzzle piece that could go over here, and connecting the dots.
Well, you just said something I thought I caught there, and that is, you said, I'm reaching out to people that I thought I would never reach out to before. Is that, did I catch that right? How are you doing that? What does that look like? And who are some of those people?
It's interesting because especially in our work, we're recognizing the need to collaborate more with community-based organizations, especially. So when you think about the need to focus on racial justice or social equity, it's the government doesn't, we don't want to just go try and be the connection with everyone individually. It's like we want to work through people who know the community themselves, or what the special needs are of that group, and really partner in a more official way, maybe, or in what way can we add financial support to help that nonprofit do its job more if we want to tap into their relationships with the community. So that's something. There's another thing too, much more thinking about public-private partnerships. Because so you'll tend to think, oh, well, public agencies do this, or nonprofits, but companies, that's a whole different thing. No, we're wanting to we are realizing we have to think about this all together, and we can all play a role. But so willing to open up some dialogue and see. I mean,
that sounds really encouraging.
Yeah.
I mean, I love this. Yeah, I love the sound of that.
Well, it's remembering too that people who live in a community, they may be working for a multinational company, but they're still people who are concerned about climate change, are concerned about racial justice, or whatever, and they have an influence in their own organization. And how do we really connect people who are all trying to move in the same direction? Right.
Well, those are, I appreciate you taking those questions. That's some really good feedback, and we've got to move along now. And one of the things I wanted to talk about, or have you talk about, and we won't spend a lot of time here, but there are programs in your community, there's schools and there's opportunities, and we've listed a few of those that are local here in California where Susan lives. So some of the undergraduate programs, and then graduate school programs, and Susan's alma mater, Presidio, sounded like a wonderful program. Talk a little bit about some of these certificate programs. Have you been involved in any of those kinds of classes or
Right. I checked with some of my colleagues for some of these recommendations, and that's where they come from, because there's so many others, of course, but in particular, this Berkeley one has an interesting summer program. It's a certificate program, so it's a way to just do it in a shorter amount of time and get some good experience.
Right.
And LEED is a really a brand in terms of having there's different categories of LEED, but for people who are interested in green buildings, it's a great kind of certification.
And then you talked about volunteering early in your career and doing different things, fellowship programs. Talk to us a little bit about that.
These two programs are, I think, just in California, so I'm sorry for the others, but maybe there are others elsewhere, but they're 10-month fellowships where you're in a cohort of people. It works really well for somebody who's just graduated from college and they want to get great experience. So you're embedded with a public agency or a nonprofit usually. Every once in a while, I think they'll have one embedded in a business, but it's helping do things that are helping with climate change. It's fascinating, actually. There are a lot of people who work in our department at work who did one of these programs originally. So the problem is they just give you a monthly stipend. You probably have to live at home. So that's not good. But after 10 months of this, so many people have gone on to get really, really great jobs. So it's a great way to get experience because you'll lead your own project.
So one of the things that we were talking about before we went on, when we went live, you were mentioning to me that when students are in college, that they should talk about some of the things that they're doing, right? Some of those projects. Tell us.
Oh, on the resume.
Yeah.
Saying. Okay, yeah, because I saw that really when we would look at resumes for these types of fellowship programs, because we would have fellows in our agency, that you should definitely use like a class project or something on your resume if you don't have other, you haven't had a job in this industry before, and really feel very bold about talking about those projects in the way that someone else might have about a regular job, because it is good experience and it shows that you have experience in sustainability in some way. So
got it. Susan has been very gracious in helping us put together a wonderful list of current job opportunities. And so here's the list. I've also taken this and created a posting created a job in our job board. On our job board, I created a posting and I listed all the links on that slide. So this is, if you go to the Career Alliance website, in our Twitter feed, any one of the tabs, the job seeker, career ally, or student, you'll see our Twitter feed on the right-hand side. And I posted this on the Twitter feed, and you just click this link right here, and that'll take you to all those postings. And the links are live in there. So that way you've got it. And you can also share that with others. You can email that posting to people that you know. So it's a real simple way to access all the different job postings and opportunities. Susan, what a terrific list. That was awesome.
I got a lot of it from someone else.
Well, see, that's how it works. When you collaborate and you have conversations and you network and you talk to people, right?
I kept it because she put a lot of those together. Yep.
So talk to us about how we can become aware and find out what's going on in our communities.
Yeah, I was going to say, I mentioned at the beginning of this that I got on a lot of email newsletters. You probably all are on a lot of them too, but these are just examples of some that I found to be really helpful.
Right.
Green Biz is more from the corporate perspective. The Daily Climate has articles from really around the world about, a lot of them are very positive, which I appreciate.
Right.
Things that people are doing that is good. If you're interested in carbon sequestration, this is a Google group that oh my gosh, people are prolific in talking about, various projects and things. So that's a good one. And then just from a public agency perspective, Urban Sustainability Directors Network, you can't be a member unless you are, an urban sustainability director, but you can learn a lot about what the most innovative cities are doing in the country. Right.
And here's another, tell us a little about the Sustainable Development Goals. I don't even know if I said that right.
You did. this is something I learned about at Presidio, and now I hear about it a lot. But so the UN, I don't know, a few years ago, put together some goals. They essentially wanted to say, what are all the key things if you want to have a sustainable community? And it's things like no poverty, no hunger, reduced inequities. And so it's essentially, it goes through all of these, and it has a lot of resources and then ways to localize it. So I just found it a really helpful resource, and I think just anyone in this field should know about it. And then Project Drawdown I mentioned before, but if you go to drawdown.org, there's a list of these 100 ways to reverse global warming, and it's really a great resource as well.
Well, tell us about your top takeaways for a career in sustainability.
Yeah, well, the top bullet there, it's keep learning, because there's so much happening all the time. I'm always, interested to hear about either new innovations or cool things that some other organization is doing. And so it's really important to always be open and learning and attending webinars. So that's helpful. The building your network, I think we've talked about that, but especially both within what you think you're interested in, but then on other things, like I'll look at things about sustainable food or whatever, because so many things do connect. Back to that Project Drawdown, for instance, the number three solution to global warming worldwide is reducing food waste. And number 4 is having a more plant-rich diet. So it's like you think about, oh, we should reduce energy use, but really there's these other disciplines that are having a huge impact too. And then taking time to meet for coffee, this informational interviews, or just even staying connected with other people to hear what they're doing is good. It's harder to do it now, but really Zoom works. And then, excuse me, the last one is like figuring out what you can do individually or through your own role to move things forward.
And maybe this helps with that.
Yeah, absolutely. I saw this this 4-minute video of this guy talking through this, and I thought it was brilliant. So I just want to share it. He said there's 4 levels of action, right? Mm-hmm. There's individual, just what you do, your friends and family, how you might influence them, the organizations that you're a member of, and then level 4 is changing laws in the economy. And so for years, environmentalists have focused on levels 1 and 4. So level 1, drive less, take shorter showers, change your light bulbs. Level 4 is, sign this petition, lobby that person. But we can actually have the most impact at levels 2 and 3, and especially 3. So this level is where you have influence. So like an organization where within a week you could get a meeting with the person in charge. So like there's an example of getting your local school to install solar panels, for instance. It's a project where you can organize and gather a group of people to get it done. You could figure out the economics of the project. And then the conversation that you generate at the school, whether it's with the principal, the students, the PTA, that's a big part of the change. And it's as useful as the change itself. Because if you change a local institution or an organization you're involved with, it's not just impacting your life, it's impacting the lives of hundreds and maybe thousands of other people. So when the solar panels go up, other schools nearby think, why don't we have solar panels? And then other institutions can take that same model for change. So it has a ripple effect that's really powerful.
I think that's really, really helpful. I know we just had new lighting installed at our local high school. What a difference it made. It's making as it relates just the visibility. Plus, it's all LED, so you know that the wattage is being saved is huge. Well, we have to wrap this up. I mean, it was a lot of information today, but that's okay, because there's a lot to this subject, and we wanted to make sure that people could really dive in a little bit. And again, I think your story is so remarkable. The career change with education and volunteer. I mean, you just kind of did all the boxes. You just kind of check. So it's just really fun to see and witness that kind of success and then see you as you've progressed in your career to where you are right now. Before I finish up with some of the final Q&A, we've tried to cover many of those questions that that we have in our discussion. I've launched the poll, and so I've added a new question this week. It's question number 5. So you have to scroll down through that poll to get all the questions, just so you know, in case you didn't. And 5 is, please tell us if you are a student, recent graduate, job seeker, career ally, ABF community, retired potential ABF mentor. So really trying to see who is in our community here and listening and watching. So the poll is really important for us because it gives us our feedback, and we really appreciate that. So I'm going to leave that up and live as we continue to move forward through the wrap up. One of the things that was interesting to me, you know, we keep getting these questions about career change. We have a question from Josephine, who is a teacher, and she's wanting to change into another career, maybe to be an entrepreneur. And then, you know, how do we move? I mean, what kind of work experience do you have to have? And I just feel like that today you really outlined some really good points as it related to thinking about a career change and the volunteering piece of it. Is there any other aspect that you can think of that maybe you'd say, make sure that this gets done?
That's a good question. I think it's mainly just to be keeping up on the issues that relate to the industry you want to be in, and so that you can really speak to that. Because I think skills, there are transferable skills, and I think people recognize that, but you need to show that you really get it in this new field and that you can be relevant in, you know, as you step into that role.
You know, Kathleen asked the question, how do you convince a hiring person to take a chance on you at your first step in a career change? One of the things I think is helpful, you just kind of mentioned the background or your comments just now, but that sparked my thought, which is when you're having informational interviews, you know, have them with with people, employees. If you want to be a sustainability specialist, then have informational interviews with sustainability specialists, maybe at the County of San Mateo, if that's the job that you're going for, so that you can kind of start to get that insider viewpoint. You start to learn what are the skills, what are the things that are really important that they're looking for on their team. And maybe you can comment too on that, Susan.
I think that's true. I think the thing that's tricky about right now is I think a lot of places aren't hiring. I mean, like we have a hiring freeze at the county, but if you are doing those informational interviews, you might get invited to, hey, we're having this event, you should come check it out. Or just, I think you'll get, if you're expressing passion for a certain type of role, they'll like to help you. Because
right.
If they do it, they like to see other people who have a passion for that too. So, you know, they may help you even with just information or connecting with someone else. And so I think
I'll tell you another thing. My daughter, she was applying for a job at a Fortune 500 company. And my first question was, I said, well, why are you applying there? There's thousands of people that are going to apply for that job. And she says, well, I really, She made the compelling case. I said, well, then here's what you got to do. You've got to find someone inside that organization who is willing to refer you or walk your resume into the director of human resources or to the specific hiring manager. And as you just said, people want to help. And oftentimes these corporations, companies, organizations are incentivizing their employees to help them recruit, help them find quality, because that's the hardest thing to do as a hiring manager. I've done it hundreds of times. How do you find a candidate to fill this position that, you know, instead of going through the algorithms and all the different, I would love for Susan to recommend someone to me if I'm a hiring manager. So find someone within the organization who you can strike up a conversation with, or who is willing to do an informational interview with you, and then maybe transition that into that person maybe being your referral and recommendation. So
I totally agree with, I would say one thing, Robin, that maybe we could have a separate webinar or something about getting hired in a public agency, because there's this whole like civil service hiring process.
I am writing that. That is a great idea. Yes.
Yeah. I mean, I think all of that, knowing someone on the inside is helpful regardless, but someone in the same way, you can't do it in the same way, like as a private company of having someone open a door for you, but you can get a better sense for what that organization needs and wants, or,
right,
will help you in the process for sure.
I think that's perfect idea. I just made that note. I'm going to get it on the schedule. I'm going to be calling on you. Maybe we can do a panel of folks to.
Ooh, that'd be cool.
Yeah, don't you think? That'd be a great topic. So we are long. I'm long in the tooth today. God bless us. I'm going to make another quick appeal to our audience, your friends, your family, to our community. Join us, register, post a career connection, a job opportunity, an internship, an externship. Help us help our community, help our students, help those furloughed employees. I have some of them in my own house. My own kids. It's been a challenge. There's a lot of folks that have been impacted by this. So let's do something where we actually putting that water in the glass, let's fill it up with some of these career connections and job opportunities. If you want to connect with Susan, all you have to do is go to the abfcareeralliance.org, click one of those 3 tabs, job seeker, student, career ally, and you'll see the Twitter feed on the page. And all you do is click this link right here, and boom, it will open right up into Susan's connection, and we'll help facilitate that quickly. And here's her particular connection. That last one was for the jobs. Just wanted to remind you of that. And if you aren't following us on our social media accounts, we would love for you to do so. We'd love for you to tell your friends, your family about it. So connect with us on social media, Facebook at the Albert Baker Fund, Twitter at ABF_connections, Instagram at Albert Baker Fund, and LinkedIn, ABF Career Alliance. We appreciate the outpouring of love for the Brotherly Love campaign for the Albert Baker Fund. This was set up to help our fellow Christian Scientists impacted by our recent events. We're pleased to share that because of your generosity, we've met that goal. However, there are more opportunities in the future. We have 17 students who lost jobs or their family support and are being awarded ABF scholarships so they can continue college this fall. We are expecting another 80 students that have been impacted by the recent events in the fall. So please stay tuned for that as well. But we appreciate your outpouring of love for these wonderful students that we have. I tell you today, we did some serious casting of the net. Boy, some great ideas from Susan. We're so appreciative of everything she shared with us today. We thank her for her time and the fact that she's been a career ally for us for a long time. And as I said, please reach out. We're happy to help you. We had a terrific time today with this, and I want to make sure that I'm going to end the poll. So if any of you have anything left in the poll to have done it, be sure that you click on it real quick. And if you have any questions for me, I'm happy to answer them. Just reach out to me via email at robin@albertbakerfund.org. This is Robin Jones signing off for the Net Effect. For myself and our lovely guest, Susan, thank you all. We appreciate everybody being here today. So thank you, and have a wonderful, wonderful weekend.
Thank you.
Thank you.